Hello again and thanks for joining. So today we have this Fleischmann model to have a look at. It's number 4246 and it's unusual for a German manufacturer because it's actually a British locomotive that's inside of this. It's obviously a Warship class locomotive, which I think was on the Great Western Railway or that kind of area of England. I think the Warship locomotive is a really attractive one. It's very retro, but it just has that characterful appeal about it, I think. So this is quite rare for a manufacturer that isn't based in the UK, and I'm actually thinking this is possibly HO scale rather than 00 scale. I don't have a 00 scale Warship to compare this one to size for size, but anyway, we'll have a look at this today and we'll give it a review anyway. So I got this second hand. Obviously the box is looking not too bad. It's got some shelfware here where it's just possibly a price tag that's been on it in the past. But overall, this is looking very good condition for its age. You'll also see inside the box we seem to have some nameplates here that haven't been applied to this locomotive. So I'm hoping this is going to be in really good condition. Let's get it out and we'll have a look. So first out the box we have two pieces of paper. This one here, which is the guarantee registration, and it looks as though this was sold in Reading in Berkshire at some point in the past. It doesn't have a date on here. And we have another card which just talks about the guarantee. So the model seems pretty secure here in its polystyrene tray, and we do indeed have these extra nameplates here. It says the Mayflower and the other one says the Cornish Riviera Express. It's really cool that these haven't actually been fitted yet, so this is, I think, quite rare to see this in a model of this age. Anyway, let's get this model out the packaging and we'll have a closer look. Underneath the model we have this leaflet here, and it has some checkered history about the prototype as well as this really good diagram here. Inside it gives instructions about how to operate and maintain this model, and also the placement for the extra nameplates as well, which fits on the front obviously. It does look as though this can possibly run on 3-rail as well as 2-rail operation. And what's really cool about this is things like this, which is written in English, but it's actually really bad English. So I really like that kind of stuff. If locomotive operates jerkily, I'm not even sure that's a word, but cool that it's there. So here we have this Warship model, and it does look actually really quite cool. It's a very nice colour of green, and it's got the full yellow ends and a grey roof as well. Let's have a closer look, starting at this end here. So the glazing up here is very clear and nicely presented with this flush fit and the silver surround. This one does seem to have lost some of its silver just around the edges here. I think that's just indicative of the age of this model. The finish on the yellow isn't actually the best, especially around the number boxes here, but it could be that this one has actually been repainted by the previous owner, because this does not look as though it's factory fitted, and it also has this black part here which has been picked out. The buffer beam down here has some red painted onto it, and the buffers here seem to have a bit of overspill on the edges, or it could just be that the black has worn off over age. It has this coupling, very typical of Fleischmann, sticking out the front, and that's articulated as well to help this stay coupled up round tight corners. And then this part down here has some vacuum pipes as well added on as extra pieces, which is a really nice touch. So looking inside the cab here, we do have some details of the control panel, but you can see that the motor is sitting there. It's very much like the Hornby Ringfield motor, and it has been fitted just straight on top of the bogie here, so it will move around as this bogie moves as well. You can see that here. And we have a very nicely presented door with these handles at the side which have been picked out in silver. And then we have the number D821 as a transfer. That's very clear as well. A little bit of black here and below the door, and these ladders going down on the main moulding. We have a window, very nicely and clear, flush fit here, which just shows you the motor inside. And then we have these grills which are moulded on, and there's a lot of relief on those. They look really impressive. In the middle of the locomotive we have this really quite nice shiny nameplate, and above it the British Railways crest. And just looking down here for a moment, we've got all these little hatches with lots of details on rivets and brackets on them that's been really nicely moulded into the plastic there. All the way down the side as well is this cream line, which has been printed on very clear as well. No problems at all with that printing. When we come to this window, there is a bit of problems here. I'm not actually sure whether that's been glued back in by a previous owner. Maybe it's fallen out. And then down this end we have more detail on the cab. We've got the controls, and in this one we have two people actually driving this locomotive that have been fitted in there. I think they might actually be from the factory. If not, they've been fitted in by the previous owner, but they do look pretty cool, and it really makes it look quite impressive. So this has obviously been designed to drive with the motor at the back of this locomotive, so you can take full advantage of seeing both the two operators inside this cab, which has been fully detailed at this end. There's no differences on the end of this locomotive from the first end here. Again, this yellow looks a bit scrappy. I actually do think this has been repainted at some point. So the bogies on the Warship model really show off the side of the wheels, and they're quite basic here. Black inserts with the metal, and we have these brake blocks here in line with the wheels as well, which is really good. And then a lot of detail of the springs and other parts of the bogie moulded in here. So the bogies have been done really well. This one you can see has got the pickup here for maybe the third rail. I suspect it will also run on 2 rail. One of the things I particularly like here is the detail underneath. Now they didn't have to add this detail in, you normally wouldn't see it, but they've actually moulded in all the rivets and the tanks, and then you can see the Fleischmann logo there as well. There's 2 screws to take this apart. I think we'll do that in a moment. And this end is the power bogie with a motor attached above, and it looks as though all 4 wheels here are fitted with traction tyres. So this is quite heavy at this end of the model. It's not a particularly heavy model overall, but certainly with the traction tyres and the weight here, it's certainly going to be able to pull quite a long train. On the top of the loco, it has this grey part on the roof here, and into it has been a lot of detail moulded in. It's got rivet detail and hatches, exhaust pipes, and these grills which look really good as well. So this is quite an impressive part of the moulding, and it's obviously the part you're going to mostly see, so they've spent a lot of detail making this really good, so that's great. Okay, let's undo these screws and we'll have a look at the mechanism inside. While I'm doing this, I'd just like to mention that I have a range of train spotting and model railway books on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description below so you can check them out. Any purchase you make really helps this channel, so thanks very much. So that came apart really easily, just 2 screws, and this model came apart no problems at all. So looking on the inside of the body shell, you can see actually it has motor moulded into the plastic there. So this is obviously the motor end, and this other end is where the detail is with the driver. It has these 2 bands here. I'm not quite sure what they're for. They don't seem to attach to anything, and I can indeed see that this window here has fallen out at some point and somebody has glued it back in very badly, so that's a bit of a shame that it's looking like that. So this chassis is very similar to Hornby ones of the era in that it's got the motor fitted here and it's got the pickup from this bogie at the front. These cables run the length of the model, and you can see that it has motor written there, just in case you didn't know that this was a motor. It feels like this chassis is made all of metal, and it also has an additional metal weight on the motor here as well. This is moving around very freely. I'm very happy about that. I don't think we'll have any problems when we run this model. And you can see here it has a little light bulb with a reflector, so that's for the lights at the front of this locomotive. At this end we have another light bulb here just to mirror what we've just seen, and here we can see the 2 operators, the driver and his fat friend here as well in the passenger seat. So that's quite nice that we've got some detail here in the cab. So let's get this back together and then we'll give it a bit of a run. So if you're interested in buying this particular model from Fleischmann, then it will be coming up soon on my eBay store. I'll put a link in the description below to the store so you can check it out and buy this model if you want. I've also got some other great models and other things for sale too, so check it out when you can. Okay, we're all back together and I think we can put this on the test track and see how it runs. So here it is on the test track. Let's give it some juice, see what happens. Well, that was really impressive. It didn't even need a push to get started, and it runs really smoothly and very quiet as well, and the lights are working too, which is great. I also noticed as well, one other little thing that I missed when I was looking at it close up is that the window here just beside the driver, and it's also the same on the opposite corner, is being moulded open as if he's slid this open so you can get some air. So that's quite a nice little touch as well. Anyway, let's see how much this weighs. So this model weighs 342 grams. So overall, this model from Fleischmann has actually turned out to be quite a cool model. There's no indication about how old this model is, but I would guess it's probably around about the 80s. And it's very similar to other manufacturers and how they did diesel locomotives of the time, for example, Hornby and Lima. But what is really noticeable about this model is that the motor is so much better than anything that Hornby or Lima have done in this era, because it's just so smooth and quiet, and you can run it at such a slow speed as well. So the mechanics of this model is really quite impressive. The body as well is really good, and I like the fact it's got some interior detail and the 2 people inside, so it's got a lot going for this model. I think one of the downsides though is that it's been modelled in HO scale. At least I think that it has been. It may actually be 00 scale, but I suspect it's HO scale. It certainly says it on the box. And as such, it's going to have limited appeal because there's certainly not that much British stock modelled in HO scale. But as a model in its own right, this is a great model to add to your collection. It's really detailed and it looks really cool. It's a great prototype diesel locomotive that I think looks really characterful, and this model captures that character great, I think. So let me know what you thought about my analysis of this model in the comments below. I'd love to know what you think, especially if you've got one of these and how you run it, if you've got some HO scale British rolling stock to go with this. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. It really helps this channel grow. And I'll put this on the turntable so you can see all the way around. But that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See ya!